The sirens pierced through the summer afternoon as Karen Martinez stood triumphant on her manicured lawn, pointing an accusatory finger at the colorful playground equipment that had appeared overnight in her neighbor's backyard. "Officer, that woman has stolen summer itself from my children," she declared, her voice shaking with righteous fury. But as the police car doors slammed shut and two officers approached the fence line, Karen had no idea that her 911 call would unravel a web of lies, expose her darkest secrets, and transform her from accuser to the accused in ways she never saw coming. Because sometimes, when you try to steal someone else's joy, karma has a way of delivering the ultimate summer surprise. The first thing Maya Rodriguez noticed when she stepped onto her back patio that Tuesday morning wasn't the gentle breeze rustling through the oak trees or the cheerful chirping of sparrows. It was the silence. For 3 weeks straight, the sound of children's laughter had filled the summer air as neighborhood kids gravitated toward the elaborate playground she'd installed in her backyard. The rainbow-colored swing set, the towering slide with its cheerful yellow spiral, and the sandbox filled with pristine white sand had become the unofficial headquarters of summer fun on Maple Street. But today, an eerie quiet hung over the equipment like a shroud. Maya clutched her coffee mug tighter, steam rising in delicate wisps as she surveyed her empty yard. She'd spent her entire life savings on that playground equipment after moving to this suburban neighborhood 6 months ago. As a pediatric nurse working double shifts at Children's Hospital, she understood better than most how precious childhood moments were and how quickly they could slip away. The playground wasn't just equipment to her. It was a memorial. Emma would have loved this, she whispered to the morning air, her voice catching on her daughter's name. The little girl who would have turned 8 this summer, who would have been the first to test every swing and claim the highest point on the climbing wall as her castle tower. Maya had bought this house specifically for its large backyard, imagining Emma's friends gathered here for birthday parties that would never happen. When the neighborhood children began showing up daily, drawn by the bright colors and obvious invitation of open gates, Maya's broken heart had begun to heal in small, precious increments. Mrs. Rodriguez. Maya turned to find 10-year-old Marcus Henderson peering through the gap in a fence, his dark eyes wide with confusion. Behind him stood his younger sister Zoe, clutching a worn teddy bear. "Hey, sweetheart," Maya said, forcing brightness into her voice. "You're up early." "Our mom said we can't come play anymore," Marcus said, his lower lip trembling slightly. "She said Mrs. Martinez called all the parents last night and told them you were dangerous." The coffee mug slipped from Maya's fingers, shattering against the patio stones. "What?" Zoe stepped forward, her small voice barely audible. "She said you were a stranger who lures kids with toys. She said we might disappear if we keep coming here." Maya's blood turned to ice. She knelt down to Marcus's eye level, her hands shaking as she gripped the fence. "Marcus, honey, you know me. I've lived here for months. I wave to you every morning when you walk to school." "I know," Marcus said, tears starting to fall. "But all the grown-ups are scared now." Mrs. Martinez showed them articles on her phone about bad people who hurt kids. "She said you fit the profile perfectly." Before Maya could respond, a sharp voice cut through the morning air like a blade. "Get away from that fence right now." Karen Martinez strode across her perfectly manicured lawn, her blonde hair pulled into a severe ponytail, designer athleisure outfit immaculate despite the early hour. At 42, she carried herself with the confidence of someone accustomed to getting her way, her yoga-toned arms swinging with military precision. "Marcus." "Zoe." Karen's voice carried the unmistakable tone of authority as she reached the fence line. "What did I tell your parents about talking to strangers?" "Mrs. Martinez," Maya said, rising slowly, "I think there's been a misunderstanding. Don't." Karen's manicured hand shot up like a stop sign. "Don't you dare try to manipulate these children. I've done my research, lady. Single woman, no kids of her own, moves into a family neighborhood and immediately builds a playground? The whole setup screams predator." Maya felt the world tilt beneath her feet. "I'm a pediatric nurse. I work at Children's Hospital. I love kids because you're sick," Karen finished, her voice dropping to a venomous whisper. "I've seen your type before. You think I'm stupid. You think I don't recognize grooming behavior when I see it." Marcus and Zoe had backed away from the fence, their small faces etched with confusion and fear. Maya wanted to call out to them, to explain, but she could see how her words might be twisted into something sinister. "I lost my daughter," Maya said quietly, her voice barely audible. She died in a car accident 14 months ago. I built that playground in her memory. For a split second, something flickered across Karen's face. Doubt, perhaps even sympathy. But it vanished as quickly as it had appeared, replaced by cold calculation. Convenient story, Karen said. Very sad, very manipulative. Perfect cover, actually. But I'm not buying it, and neither are the other parents on this street. You can check my story, Maya said desperately. Call the hospital. Check the obituaries. Emma Rodriguez, age 6, died last spring when a drunk driver. Save it for someone who cares, Karen snapped. All I know is that my kids and every other kid on this block was perfectly happy playing in the park down the street until you showed up with your little honey trap. Now they're obsessed with your backyard, begging to come here every day instead of spending time with their own families. Maya stared at her in disbelief. They were happy here. They were having fun. My kids were having fun at home before you interfered, Karen interrupted. We had pool parties, movie nights, family game tournaments. But now all they talk about is your stupid playground. Maya's house this, Maya's house that. You've stolen their contentment with their own lives. You've stolen their summer. The accusation hung in the air like poison gas. Maya felt tears prick at her eyes, a combination of grief, rage, and complete bewilderment. I never tried to replace anyone, Maya said. I just wanted kids to have a safe place to play. I wanted to hear laughter again. Well, congratulations, Karen said with a cruel smile. Mission accomplished. But the fun stops now. I've convinced every parent on this street that you're a danger to their children. Your little playground kingdom is over. Maya watched helplessly as Karen turned and walked away, Marcus and Zoe trailing behind her like confused puppies. The silence that settled over her backyard felt heavier now, oppressive in its completeness. She spent the rest of the morning sitting on her patio, watching the playground equipment stand empty and abandoned. The bright colors that had once seemed so cheerful now looked garish against the gray sky, like decorations for a party that had been suddenly cancelled. By noon, Maya had made a decision that would change everything. She walked to her storage shed and pulled out the power tools she'd used to assemble the playground. If the equipment was causing problems, if it was making her neighbors suspicious, then it had to go. Emma's memory deserved better than to be twisted into something ugly. Maya was halfway through dismantling the swing set when she heard the sirens. 2 police cruisers rounded the corner of Maple Street, their red and blue lights painting the suburban afternoon in urgent strokes. Maya's heart hammered against her ribs as both cars pulled up to her curb. Across the fence, Karen Martinez stood on her front porch with her arms crossed, a satisfied smile playing at the corners of her mouth. She'd changed into a crisp white blouse and pressed slacks, as if she'd been preparing for an important meeting. 4 officers emerged from the patrol cars, 2 men and 2 women, all wearing expressions of professional caution. The lead officer, a tall black woman with sergeant stripes, approached Maya's gate with measured steps. I'm Sergeant Williams with Metro Police. We've received a complaint about suspicious activity at this address. Maya set down her power drill with trembling hands. What kind of complaint? Before Sergeant Williams could answer, Karen's voice carried across the fence with theatrical projection. Officers, thank you for coming so quickly. That woman has been running an unlicensed daycare operation, luring neighborhood children to her property with playground equipment. When parents tried to intervene, she became aggressive and threatened retaliation. Maya's mouth fell open. None of that is true. She dismantled the evidence as soon as she saw your cars, Karen continued, pointing at the partially disassembled swing set. Classic guilty behavior. I have witnesses who will testify that she's been operating outside city regulations and endangering children. Sergeant Williams studied Maya with sharp, intelligent eyes. Do you operate a daycare business on this property? No, Maya said, her voice cracking. I'm a nurse at Children's Hospital. I built that playground for the neighborhood kids to enjoy. It was supposed to be a memorial for my daughter who died last year. Can you provide documentation for that claim? The sergeant asked. Maya nodded frantically. Yes, I have Emma's death certificate inside. And my employment records. And the wreath. Mrs. Chen's arthritic fingers trembled as she clutched her smartphone, her 90-year-old eyes fixed on the drama unfolding in her neighbor's backyard. She'd been watering her orchids when the police cars arrived, and something about the scene had triggered her instincts, instincts honed by 8 decades of watching people reveal their true natures. She'd started recording the moment Karen Martinez opened her mouth. "Sergeant Williams," Mrs. Chen called out, her voice carrying surprising strength as she made her way down her front steps. "I believe you need to see this before you proceed." All heads turned toward the elderly woman approaching the fence line. Maya felt a spark of hope. Mrs. Chen had always been kind to her, offering gentle waves and occasionally leaving fresh vegetables from her garden by Maya's door. Karen's confident expression flickered for just a moment before reasserting itself. "Mrs. Chen, please don't interfere with police business. This is a serious matter involving child safety." "Indeed it is," Mrs. Chen replied, her accent thick, with authority despite her advanced age. "Which is why the officers need to see the truth." She held up her smartphone, the screen displaying a paused video. "I have been recording for the past 20 minutes. Everything is here, every word, every lie." Sergeant Williams approached Mrs. Chen with professional courtesy. What exactly did you record?" "The real story," Mrs. Chen said, her eyes locked on Karen's increasingly pale face. "Play from the beginning, and you will see who is telling the truth." Karen stepped forward, her voice taking on a patronizing tone. "Officers, Mrs. Chen is 90 years old. She's confused, probably. Doesn't even know how to work that phone properly. You can't possibly take seriously anything I may be old," Mrs. Chen interrupted, steel in her voice, "but my mind is sharp and my hearing is perfect. Would you like me to repeat, word for word, what you said to those children about Maya being a predator? Or shall we let the video speak for itself?" The color drained completely from Karen's face. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came. Sergeant Williams took the phone and began reviewing the footage. The other officers gathered around, their expressions growing increasingly serious as they watched. Maya could see the video playing in reverse chronological order. First her own desperate explanations, then Karen's accusations, then the conversation with Marcus and Zoe. "Mrs. Martinez," Sergeant Williams said slowly, not looking up from the phone, "according to this recording, you told these officers that Ms. Rodriguez threatened retaliation when parents tried to intervene. But what I'm seeing here is you approaching a conversation that was already in progress between Ms. Rodriguez and 2 children." Karen's composure began to crack. That's not. The recording doesn't show the full context. It shows enough." The sergeant replied curtly. She continued watching, her expression growing darker. "Mrs. Chen, how long have you been observing the interactions between Ms. Rodriguez and the neighborhood children?" "Every day for 3 months," Mrs. Chen said without hesitation. "Maya built that playground after she lost her little girl. The children love it there. They are safe, they are happy. Never once have I seen anything inappropriate." "But that's impossible," Karen protested, desperation creeping into her voice. "She takes pictures of them. Parents have reported." "Which parents?" Sergeant Williams asked sharply. "Give me names." Karen's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. They asked me not to reveal their identities. They're afraid of retaliation." "Convenient," Officer Rodriguez, the younger male officer, muttered under his breath. Mrs. Chen stepped forward, her smartphone now in the sergeant's hands. "There is more you should know about this woman," she said, pointing at Karen. "She has been spreading lies about Maya for weeks, going door to door, showing people fake articles on her phone, claiming they were about Maya." Maya's heart stopped. Fake articles. "She created false news stories," Mrs. Chen continued, her voice growing stronger with each word. "Used Maya's photograph from the hospital website, wrote fake headlines about pediatric nurses arrested for child abuse. I saw her showing them to the Patterson family last Tuesday." The silence that followed was deafening. Karen looked like she might faint, her perfectly applied makeup beginning to streak as perspiration beaded on her forehead. "Is this true?" Sergeant Williams demanded, her voice cutting through the air like a blade. "No." Karen shouted, but her voice cracked. "She's lying. She's old and confused and—" "Show me your phone," the sergeant commanded. "You can't just— You called us here to investigate potential crimes against children. That gives us reasonable cause to examine evidence related to your claims. Your phone. Now." Karen's hand shook as she pulled out her iPhone, clutching it like a lifeline. "This is harassment. I'm the victim here. I'm trying to protect my children. Where are your children?" Officer Martinez asked suddenly. It was the first time the female officer had spoken, and her question hung in the air like a challenge. Karen blinked rapidly. There. At summer camp." "Which camp?" Officer Martinez pressed. Pine Ridge Summer Camp. In the mountains." Mrs. Chen made a sound that was half laugh, half snort. "Pine Ridge Summer Camp closed 3 years ago after a scandal. I read about it in the newspaper." Maya watched in fascination as Karen's elaborate web of lies began to unravel in real time. The woman who had been so confident, so righteous in her accusations, now looked like a cornered animal. "Mrs. Martinez," Sergeant Williams said, her patience clearly exhausted, "I'm going to ask you one more time. Where are your children?" Karen's carefully constructed facade finally shattered. "They're with their father," she screamed. "He has custody for the summer because the judge said I." She stopped herself, but it was too late. The officers exchanged meaningful looks. Sergeant Williams spoke quietly into her radio, requesting backup and what sounded like a background check. She said to Karen. "I think we need to have a longer conversation. Downtown." But Karen wasn't finished. Like a wounded animal, she lashed out with one final, desperate attack. "You don't understand," she shrieked, pointing at Maya. "She doesn't deserve happiness. She doesn't deserve to have children love her when mine are gone. It's not fair." The raw honesty of that statement hit Maya like a physical blow. This wasn't about child safety or playground regulations. This was about a woman so consumed by jealousy and bitterness that she'd been willing to destroy an innocent person's life. "My children love their father more than me," Karen continued, tears streaming down her face now, her voice becoming increasingly hysterical. "He got custody because I couldn't handle the divorce, because I made mistakes, because I let my anger control me." And then she shows up with her perfect playground and all the kids on the street start talking about how wonderful Maya is, how kind Maya is, how much they love going to Maya's house. Maya felt her own tears starting to fall, but not from anger. From pity. "I couldn't stand it," Karen sobbed. "I couldn't stand watching another woman be the mother I couldn't be. So I decided to destroy her before she could make me feel any worse about myself." The confession hung in the summer air like smoke from a fire that had finally burned itself out. Karen collapsed onto her perfectly manicured lawn, her designer outfit rumpled, her careful composure completely shattered. Sergeant Williams knelt beside her with professional compassion. "Mrs. Martinez, you're under arrest for filing a false police report, harassment, and defamation. You have the right to remain silent." As the Miranda rights were read, Maya found herself walking over to the fence that separated her property from Karen's. She looked down at the broken woman who had tried so hard to break her. "Karen," Maya said softly. Karen looked up through tear-swollen eyes. "I lost my daughter because of someone else's bad choices," Maya continued, her voice gentle but firm. "I won't let you lose yourself because of yours. I'm not going to press charges for the defamation. But you need help. Real help." Karen stared at her in disbelief. "Why would you? After everything I did to you?" "Because," Maya said, watching. "As the officers helped Karen to her feet, someone taught me that the only way to honor the love we've lost is to create more love in the world. Even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard." As Karen was led away to the patrol car, Mrs. Chen approached Maya with her smartphone still in hand. "The video will clear your name completely," she said. "But Maya, there is something else you should know." Maya wiped her eyes, bracing herself for whatever revelation was coming next. "I called all the parents while the police were talking to Karen," Mrs. Chen continued with a sly smile. "Told them the truth about what really happened. They are very embarrassed about believing her lies. Very sorry." As if summoned by her words, Maya heard the sound of running feet. She turned to see Marcus and Zoe Henderson racing across their backyard, followed by 3 other neighborhood children. "Maya!" Marcus called out, his face bright with relief. "Mom says we can come back. She says she's sorry for believing the mean lady." Behind the children, Maya could see parents emerging from their houses, some looking sheepish, others openly apologetic. The Pattersons, the Johnsons, the Williamses, all making their way toward her fence with expressions of remorse and determination. But the most significant arrival was why. Maya's stomach dropped as she watched Dr. Chen stride across her lawn with the purposeful gait of someone delivering bad news. The neighborhood children, sensing the shift in atmosphere, quieted their excited chatter and moved closer to their parents. "Dr. Chen," Maya said, her voice barely above a whisper. "What's wrong?" Sarah Chen was 38, brilliant, and typically unflappable, the kind of supervisor who could handle pediatric emergencies with steady hands and gentle words. But today, her usually composed features were etched with concern and barely contained anger. "Inside," she said curtly. "Now." Maya glanced back at the gathering neighbors, offering a weak smile. "I'll be right back," she told Marcus, who was clutching his mother's hand with worried eyes. Mrs. Chen appeared at Maya's elbow. "I will watch the children," she said firmly. "Go." Inside Maya's kitchen, Dr. Chen set her briefcase on the counter. With a decisive thunk, "Maya, I need you to tell me exactly what's been happening here. And I need the complete truth." "I don't understand," Maya said, though dread was already pooling in her chest. "What does this have to do with the hospital?" "Everything," Sarah replied, pulling out her tablet. "Because someone has been calling our board of directors, our patient families, and our media relations department with very serious allegations about one of our pediatric nurses." Maya felt the world tilt beneath her feet. Karen called the hospital. "Multiple times, over several weeks," Sarah confirmed, scrolling through what appeared to be a detailed report. She identified herself as a concerned parent and provided what seemed to be credible evidence of inappropriate behavior between you and neighborhood children. "But I never." She sent photographs, Maya. Dozens of them. Sarah turned the tablet toward Maya, and what she saw made her legs give out. She sank into a kitchen chair, staring at image after image of herself with the neighborhood children. Pictures of her pushing kids on swings, helping them climb the jungle gym, sitting in the sandbox while little ones played around her. They were innocent moments, but the way they'd been cropped and edited made them look sinister. Maya's face had been highlighted in each photo, with red circles drawn around her hands when they were near children. Captions had been added. "Nurse maintains inappropriate physical contact with minors and unlicensed daycare operation targets vulnerable children." "She's been watching me," Maya whispered, horrified, taking pictures through the fence. "It gets worse," Sarah said grimly. "She created a fake social media profile using your photograph and personal information, posted content suggesting you were under investigation for misconduct. The profile was sophisticated. It fooled several board members initially." Maya's hand shook as she continued scrolling through the evidence of Karen's campaign. The woman had been methodical, calculating, utterly ruthless in her destruction. Hospital administration received over 40 phone calls from concerned parents, Sarah continued. All with the same voice, we realized later, but using different names and contact information. She claimed to represent a neighborhood watch group dedicated to protecting children from predators. "Oh my God," Maya breathed. She sent copies of fake police reports, claiming you'd been investigated before for similar behavior in other neighborhoods. She even created a bogus news website with articles about pediatric nurses who had abused their positions of trust. Maya looked up at her supervisor with tears streaming down her face. "Sarah, you have to believe me. None of this is true. I built that playground for Emma's memory. I just wanted to help kids be happy." "I know," Sarah said softly, her expression finally showing compassion. "I've known you for 3 years, Maya. I've watched you with our patients. I've seen how children respond to you, with trust, with joy. What that woman accused you of goes against everything I know about your character." "Then why did you look so angry when you arrived?" Sarah's jaw tightened. "Because I'm furious at what she put you through, and because I'm even more furious at what she almost cost us." Maya frowned. "What do you mean?" "The board met yesterday in emergency session," Sarah explained. "They were prepared to suspend you pending a full investigation. They'd already contacted the state nursing board to flag your license. If I hadn't insisted on conducting my own preliminary investigation first, you would have been escorted out of the hospital by security this morning." The implications hit Maya like a physical blow. Her career, her life's work, her ability to help sick children, All of it had been hanging by a thread because of Karen's lies. But something didn't add up, Sarah continued. The woman making these calls claimed her children had been victimized, but she couldn't provide their names or any specific incidents. When I pressed for details, she became evasive and eventually stopped returning my calls. You investigated her. I had my grandmother investigate her, Sarah said with the first hint of a smile she'd shown since arriving. Nai might be 90, but she's better than any private detective when she sets her mind to something. She started watching your house, documenting everything, waiting for the truth to emerge. Maya stared at her supervisor in amazement. Mrs. Chen is your grandmother. And when she called me this morning to tell me what really happened, I knew I had to get here before. Sarah's phone buzzed loudly, interrupting her thought. She glanced at the screen and her expression darkened. Speak of the devil. What is it? Channel 7 News. They want a statement about the pediatric nurse under investigation for child endangerment. Sarah looked up at Maya with grim determination. Karen didn't just call the hospital, Maya. She called the media. Before Maya could respond, there was a knock at her front door. Through the window, she could see a news van parked on the street, its satellite dish extended like a mechanical flower reaching toward the sky. Maya Rodriguez. A woman's voice called from the porch. I'm Jennifer Walsh from Channel 7 News. We'd like to get your response to the allegations that have been made against you. Maya felt panic rising in her chest. What do I do? Sarah stood up, her expression transforming from concerned supervisor to protective mentor. You don't say anything. Not yet. But I do. She strode to the front door and opened it with authority. Maya could hear her voice clearly from the kitchen. Ms. Walsh, I'm Dr. Sarah Chen, Chief of Pediatric Services at Children's Hospital. I understand you're here about allegations made against one of our nurses. Yes, we've received multiple reports about Maya Rodriguez operating an illegal daycare and potentially endangering children. Can you confirm that she's under investigation? I can confirm that we conducted a thorough investigation into these allegations, Sarah replied crisply. And I can also confirm that they were completely fabricated by a woman who has just been arrested for filing false police reports and harassment. Maya crept closer to the living room, watching through the doorway as Sarah faced down the reporter with professional poise. Are you saying the allegations are untrue? The reporter pressed. I'm saying that Maya Rodriguez is one of the most dedicated, compassionate pediatric nurses I've ever supervised. The accusations against her were part of an elaborate harassment campaign conducted by an unstable individual who has now been taken into police custody. We have video evidence proving that every single claim was manufactured. But what about the photographs showing inappropriate contact, were taken without permission and edited to create false impressions? Sarah interrupted. The actual context of those photographs shows a woman who built a memorial playground for her deceased daughter and welcomed neighborhood children to use it safely. There was never any inappropriate contact, never any danger to children, and never any unlicensed daycare operation. Maya watched in amazement as her supervisor systematically dismantled every aspect of Karen's lies with calm, factual precision. Furthermore, Sarah continued, Children's Hospital stands fully behind Nurse Rodriguez. She will be returning to work tomorrow with our complete support and confidence. Any news organization that continues to perpetuate these false allegations will be hearing from our legal department. The reporter seemed to deflate slightly. Can we speak with Nurse Rodriguez directly? Not today. She's been through enough trauma thanks to this harassment campaign. But I can arrange an official statement later this week if necessary. Maya heard the front door close and Sarah's footsteps returning to the kitchen. When her supervisor reappeared, she looked satisfied but tired. Is it over? Maya asked quietly. The immediate crisis, yes. But Maya, there's something else you need to know. Maya braced herself for another revelation. When the hospital board was reviewing Karen's allegations, they also reviewed your personnel file, your performance evaluations, your patient feedback, scores, your colleague recommendations. Sarah paused, studying Maya's face. Did you know that you have the highest patient satisfaction ratings in the entire pediatric department? Maya shook her head, confused by the shift in conversation. Did you know that 12 different families have written letters specifically requesting you as their child's primary nurse? Sarah continued. Or that Dr. Peterson calls you the baby whisperer because you're the only nurse who can calm his most difficult patients. No, I didn't know that. Sarah smiled, the first genuine smile Maya had seen from her all day. Well, now you. David Martinez stood frozen on the sidewalk across from Maya's house, his cell phone still pressed to his ear, the detective's words echoing in his mind like a death knell. His hands trembled as he watched his ex-wife being loaded into the back of a police cruiser 3 hours earlier, and now everything made terrible sense. Mr. Martinez. Detective Morrison's voice crackled through the phone. Are you still there? Yes, David whispered, his voice hoarse. Yes, I'm here. Sir, I need you to come down to the station immediately. There are some things about your ex-wife's behavior that we need to discuss. Things that go beyond what happened today. David's legs felt like water. At 39, he was a successful architect with a reputation for steady thinking and careful planning. But nothing had prepared him for this moment. Detective, he said slowly, before I come down there, I need to tell someone something. Someone who deserves to know the truth. Mr. Martinez, I'd prefer if you. There's a woman across the street who's been through hell because of Karen's lies. She deserves to know what my ex-wife really is before anyone else does. David ended the call and walked across Maple Street on unsteady legs. Through Maya's backyard fence, he could see her sitting in the sandbox with 6 children, helping them build an elaborate sand castle. Her laughter mixed with theirs, creating a symphony of joy that made his heart ache. This was what Karen couldn't bear to see. This was what had driven her over the edge. Excuse me, he called softly through the fence. Maya looked up, her expression immediately wary. She'd seen him before, the tall man with kind eyes who occasionally visited Karen's house, always leaving with an expression of barely contained frustration. You're Karen's, Maya began. Ex-husband, David finished. David Martinez. Maya, I need to talk to you. It's important. Maya stood slowly, brushing sand from her knees. Children, keep building. I'll be right back. She approached the fence, cautiously, and David could see the wariness in her eyes. After everything Karen had put her through, he couldn't blame her for being suspicious of anyone connected to his ex-wife. Maya, he said quietly, I just got off the phone with the police. They told me what Karen did to you, and God, I'm so sorry. It's not your fault, Maya replied, though her voice remained guarded. Actually, it is, David said, his voice breaking. It's completely my fault, and I'll never forgive myself for it. Maya frowned. I don't understand. David took a deep breath, knowing that what he was about to reveal would change everything. Maya, Karen didn't lose custody of our children because of the divorce. She lost custody because she tried to hurt a child before. The blood drained from Maya's face. What? Not sexually, David said quickly, seeing her horrified expression. But she can't stand seeing other people's children happy when she's miserable, especially when those children prefer someone else to her. David's hand shook as he continued. 3 years ago, we lived in a different neighborhood. There was a woman named Lisa who ran a home daycare. Karen became convinced that our kids, Tyler and Sophie, loved Lisa more than they loved her. Maya's stomach began to turn. At first, Karen just complained constantly about Lisa, said she was too permissive, that she let the kids eat too much sugar, that she wasn't educational enough. But then the complaints got darker. She started claiming that Lisa was neglecting the children, that they came home dirty and upset. Were they? No, David said flatly. They came home happy and exhausted from playing. But Karen couldn't see it that way. In her mind, any joy they experienced away from her was joy stolen from her. David wiped his eyes, the memory clearly painful. One day, Karen volunteered to help with a field trip to the zoo. 23 children, 4 adults. Somehow, during the chaos of the monkey exhibit, my 4-year-old daughter Sophie wandered away from the group. Maya's hand flew to her mouth. Sophie was found an hour later at the polar bear exhibit, crying and terrified. She told the zookeepers that a lady had taken her hand and led her away from her friends, then left her there alone. Karen, Maya whispered. The security cameras confirmed it. Karen deliberately separated Sophie from the group, walked her to the most remote part of the zoo, and left her there. A 4-year-old child. My baby. Maya felt sick. Why would she do that to her own daughter? Because it wasn't about Sophie, David said, tears streaming down his face now. It was about destroying Lisa. Karen's plan was to claim that Lisa had been negligent, that she'd lost track of a child in her care. She was going to sue Lisa, get her daycare shut down, and ruin her reputation. But Sophie could have been hurt. She could have fallen into the polar bear enclosure, been kidnapped by a stranger, died of exposure if they hadn't found her before closing time. David's voice was raw with anguish. Karen risked our daughter's life just to destroy a woman whose only crime was being good with children. Maya stared at him in horror, pieces of a much larger puzzle falling into place. The police investigation revealed that Karen had been planning it for weeks, David continued. She'd studied the zoo layout, identified the blind spots in security coverage, even researched how long it would take for a child to become hypothermic in the outdoor exhibits. Jesus Christ. When they confronted her with the evidence, Karen broke down and confessed. But even then, she insisted she was the victim. She said Lisa had stolen her children's love, that she was just trying to protect them from someone who was making them happier than she could. Maya suddenly understood the look she'd seen in Karen's eyes, not just jealousy, but a kind of dangerous madness born from eternal inadequacy and narcissistic rage. I divorced her immediately, David said. Got full custody of the kids. We moved across the country to get away from her, but she followed us. That's why Tyler and Sophie are at their grandparents' house in Oregon right now, because Karen was getting too close again, making them nervous. The summer camp story was a lie. She can't admit, even to herself, that her own children are afraid of her. David's voice cracked completely. Maya, when I saw those police cars today, when I heard what she'd done to you, I realized that. She's escalating. The playground, the false accusations, the systematic campaign to destroy your life, it's all the same pattern, but worse. Maya felt dizzy. How is it worse? Because Lisa had 23 children to focus on. You only had the neighborhood kids, 8, maybe 10 children total. In Karen's mind, that made your theft of their affection more personal, more concentrated, more unforgivable. They stood in silence for a moment, the weight of David's revelation settling between them like a toxic cloud. David, Maya said finally, what aren't you telling me? He looked up at her with eyes full of terrible knowledge. The detective who called me? He said they found journals in Karen's house. Detailed plans for what she was going to do next if the false police reports didn't work. What kind of plans? David's voice dropped to a whisper. She was going to hurt one of the children playing at your house and frame you for it. The journals are full of detailed scenarios. Which child would be the best target, how to inflict injuries that would look like abuse, how to plant evidence in your house. Maya's legs gave out. She sank to the ground, her back against the fence, staring across at the children still building their innocent sandcastle. She was going to hurt Marcus, David continued, his voice breaking. She'd identified him as the most trusting, the least likely to fight back. She had it all planned out, when his parents would be at work, how she'd lure him away from the other kids, what story she'd tell the police when they found him. Maya began to hyperventilate. We have to tell his parents. We have to warn everyone. The police are already doing that, David assured her quickly. Every family on this street is being contacted right now. But Maya, there's something else. She looked up at him with wild eyes. The last entry in her journal was dated yesterday. She wrote that if she couldn't destroy you legally, she was going to destroy you permanently. She'd bought supplies to make it look like you'd committed suicide out of guilt. Maya stared at him in complete shock. She was going to kill me. After she hurt Marcus, after she'd framed you for child abuse and watched your life crumble completely, she was going to break into your house and stage your death. She wanted you to experience the maximum amount of suffering before you died. The backyard began to spin around Maya. The laughter of the children became distant and surreal, like sounds from another world. Maya. Marcus's voice cut through. Her dissociation. Are you okay? You look sick. She turned to see all the children looking at her with concern, their sand castle forgotten. Marcus in particular looked worried, his young face scrunched with empathy. The child Karen had planned to torture. The boy who'd shown Maya nothing but trust and affection. the innocent victim in a war he'd never even known was being fought. Maya pulled herself to her feet, her protective instincts overriding her shock. "I'm fine, sweetheart. Just got a little dizzy in the heat." But as she smiled reassuringly at Marcus, her mind was racing. David's revelations had answered so many questions, but they'd also raised the most terrifying question of all. If Karen was capable of planning such elaborate, calculated evil, what else had she done in the past that no one knew about? And more importantly, what had she set in motion? At 11:47 p.m., Maya jolted awake to the sound of her security system's shrill alarm. Red light strobed through her bedroom windows as the automated voice announced, "Breach detected. Rear entrance. Breach detected." She grabbed her phone with trembling hands, her heart hammering against her ribs. The display showed 17 missed calls from David Martinez, all within the last hour. As she scrolled frantically through her notifications, a text message appeared that made her blood freeze. She's gone. Karen escaped during transport to county jail. Armed and extremely dangerous. Get out now. Maya was already pulling on clothes when she heard the first footstep on her back patio. Then she heard something that nearly stopped her heart completely. The sound of children's voices, muffled and terrified, coming from her backyard. "Maya." Marcus's voice carried through the darkness, high with panic. "Help us. The lady said you wanted to see us." Maya's hand shook as she peered through her bedroom blinds. In the ghostly red glow of her security lights, she could see Karen Martinez standing beside the playground equipment, holding Marcus and Zoe Henderson by their arms. Both children were in their pajamas, tears streaming down their faces. Karen had a gun pointed at the sky, but the message was clear. One wrong move, and it would be pointed at the children. "I know you're watching, Maya." Karen called out, her voice carrying the unhinged edge of complete mental breakdown. "Come outside. We need to finish our conversation." Maya's phone buzzed with an incoming call from David. She answered with shaking fingers. "Maya, thank God." David's voice was strained with panic. "Listen to me very carefully. Do not go outside. The police are already on their way, but she has Marcus and Zoe," Maya whispered. "David, she has children." "I know. The Hendersons called 911 when they found their kids missing. But Maya, you can't give her what she wants." Karen's completely snapped. "She thinks if she can force you to confess to crimes you didn't commit, it will somehow vindicate everything she's done." Through the window, Maya could see Karen growing more agitated. She was pacing now, the gun waving erratically as she spoke. To the terrified children. "She's going to hurt them," Maya said. "Maya, no. If you go out there, if I don't go out there, she'll definitely hurt them." Maya was already moving toward her back door. "David, I won't let innocent children suffer because of her obsession with me." "Wait. There's something else you need to know." Maya paused with her hand on the doorknob. "Karen didn't escape," David said urgently. "She was released." "What?" "Her lawyer got the charges reduced to misdemeanor harassment. She posted bail an hour ago." "But Maya, the police don't know about the journals yet. I was supposed to bring them to the station tomorrow morning. As far as they know, she's just a vindictive neighbor, not a would-be child killer." Maya felt the world tilt beneath her feet. So they won't respond like she's armed and dangerous. "Exactly. Maya, please, just wait for." Maya ended the call and stepped onto her back patio. The security lights bathed the yard in harsh white illumination, turning the cheerful playground equipment into ominous shadows. "There she is." Karen called out triumphantly. "The neighborhood hero. Come closer, Maya. Let's give these children a front row seat to the truth." Maya raised her hands, showing they were empty. "Karen, let the children go. Whatever you think I've done to you, they are innocent." "Innocent?" Karen laughed, the sound sharp and brittle. "These children worship you, Maya. They think you're some kind of saint. But I'm going to show them who you really are." Marcus struggled in Karen's grip. "Maya didn't do anything bad. She's nice to us." "Shut up." Karen snapped, tightening her. Hold on his arm until he cried out. "You don't understand what she's done to this neighborhood, to your families. She's poisoned everything with her fake kindness." Maya took a careful step forward. "Karen, I know you're hurting. I know you feel like everyone's turned against you. But hurting these children won't fix anything. Won't it? Karen's eyes glittered with malicious satisfaction. See, I've been thinking about this all wrong. I tried to destroy you legally, tried to turn people against you with evidence and logic. But that's not how the world really works, is it? She pressed the gun against Marcus's temple, and both children began sobbing. The world responds to tragedy, Karen continued, her voice taking on an eerie calm. To victims. To mothers who've lost everything. So here's what's going to happen, Maya. You're going to confess, on video, to everything I accused you of. You're going to admit that you lured these children to your house for inappropriate purposes. I'll never do that. Yes, you will. Because if you don't, I'm going to shoot little Marcus here. And then I'm going to shoot Zoe. And then I'm going to call 911 in hysterics, crying about how the evil woman next door finally snapped and murdered 2 innocent children before I could stop her. Maya's blood turned to ice as the full scope of Karen's plan became clear. I'll be the grieving neighbor who tried to save them, Karen continued. The woman who tried to warn everyone but wasn't believed until it was too late. I'll get sympathy, support, vindication. And you'll be dead or in prison, exactly where you belong. Karen, Maya said desperately, you're talking about murdering children. Your own neighbor's children. Kids you've known since they were babies. They are not my children, Karen replied with chilling indifference. They chose you over me. They chose your plastic playground over their real families. They deserve whatever happens next. Maya realized with growing horror that Karen had moved completely beyond rational thought. This wasn't about jealousy anymore, or even revenge. This was about a woman so consumed by narcissistic rage that she was willing to commit mass murder to avoid accepting responsibility for her own failures. Maya. Marcus called out, his voice breaking with terror. I don't want to die. That was the moment Maya made her decision. Okay, she said loudly. Okay, Karen. You win. I'll make your video. Karen's expression shifted to surprised satisfaction. Smart choice. Get your phone. Maya pulled out her smartphone, her mind racing. But first, you have to let the children move away from you. I won't confess to anything while you're holding a gun to their heads. Nice try. They stay right here. Then there's no video, Maya said firmly. I'm not confessing to child abuse while pointing a gun at children. Even you should see how that would look. Karen's face twisted with frustration. For a moment, Maya thought she might shoot them all out of sheer rage. But then Karen's cunning reasserted itself. Fine. Kids, sit down right there. She gestured to a spot 10 feet away. Don't move, don't run, or I'll shoot Maya first and then hunt you down. Marcus and Zoe scrambled to the designated spot, clinging to each other. They were far enough from Karen that they might survive if shooting started, but close enough that she could easily target them. Maya raised her phone and activated the video camera. But instead of pointing it at herself, she pointed it at Karen. Wait, Maya said loudly, making sure her voice would carry clearly on the recording. Before I confess, I want to make sure everyone understands why you're doing this to me. Tell the camera about your daughter Sophie and what you did to her. At the zoo. Karen's face went white. What are you talking about? Tell them about Lisa, the daycare provider whose life you tried to destroy. Tell them how you deliberately endangered your own 4-year-old daughter to frame an innocent woman. Stop it. Karen shrieked, but Maya continued relentlessly. Tell them about the journals the police found in your house. The detailed plans to torture Marcus and frame me for child abuse. Tell them how you were going to stage my suicide after destroying my life completely. Karen was backing away now, her confident demeanor crumbling. You don't know what you're talking about. I know exactly what I'm talking about, Karen Martinez. And so does everyone else now. Maya turned the phone toward the fence, where she could see the red and blue glow of police lights approaching. But more importantly, she could see faces, dozens of them, neighbors who had gathered in their backyards, drawn by the commotion and the security alarms. Everyone can see you now, Karen, Maya said, her voice carrying across the quiet neighborhood. Everyone can see you holding a gun on 2 children because you can't stand the fact that they're happy somewhere other than your house. Shut up. Karen screamed, swinging the gun toward Maya. Shut up right now or I'll. The crack of the gunshot echoed through the night air, but it wasn't Karen who fired. Mrs. Chen stood at her back door, a smoking hunting rifle in her 90-year-old hands and a look of grim satisfaction on her weathered face. Karen Martinez lay unconscious in the sandbox, her gun scattered safely out of reach. I fought in 3 wars, Mrs. Chen announced to the gathering crowd. I am not afraid of one crazy woman with a pistol. As police officers swarmed into the backyard and paramedics rushed to check on Marcus and Zoe, Maya sank to her knees in the grass. The children were safe. Karen was finally stopped. The nightmare was over. But the real revelation came 3 days later, when Detective Morrison called Maya with news that would reshape her understanding of everything that had happened. Ms. Rodriguez, we've been going through Karen Martinez's electronic devices and financial records. We found something you need to know about. Maya sat in her kitchen, surrounded by get-well cards from every family on Maple Street. What?